Invincible tries so hard to pretend it's progressive, and it's really, really not. First, let's examine how the writers portray black characters. Amber has been called many things: selfish, gaslighting, abusive, manipulative, which are all true, but it's more than that. She's also a token black character. Why? Because she has no real depth. And by no real depth, I mean that there's nothing interesting about why she is the way she is or why she does what she does. She doesn't hesitate to push back when Todd harasses her or kick him in the balls to protect Mark, which gives off the character traits of toughness and assertiveness. But how did she come to be this way? Was she abused in the past? Did she see someone she cares about get hurt and had to defend them? Or was she helpless and couldn't defend them or herself? Any of these reasons would be both relatable and interesting. But as far as the Invincible writers are concerned, these character traits just fell out of the sky. She was just born with them. If you give your character likable traits without relatable reasons as to how said traits came to be, you're writing a Mary Sue. You're just telling us to like your character without showing us why we should like them. Our intelligence is further insulted by the writers making Amber a social justice warrior, volunteering at soup kitchens and building schools in the Philippines. Why? Why is Amber doing these things? And don't tell us it's because she wants to make the world she wants to live in. We need more depth than that because otherwise it just sounds sanctimonious. You must like Amber because of her moral superiority. She's so compassionate and strong that she volunteers her valuable time for the less fortunate. Just because she's compassionate and selfless, how can you not like her? This is one of the major reasons why people hate Mary Sue's. The writer is basically telling you, if you don't like my character because of all the superficial positive qualities I'm slapping onto them, there's something wrong with you. Contrast that with Mark, who wants to be a superhero because he wants to help people, but mostly because he wants to be like his father, the greatest hero on the planet. The male character can have personal, even selfish reasons for wanting to do what he does and still be seen as admirable, while the female character has to have completely selfless reasons in order to be admirable. Invincible, you're not progressive. Obviously, the writers aren't nearly as afraid of making men of color fallible as they are of making women of color fallible. Erickson is proof of that, but that doesn't make Titan any less of a failure on their part. Yes, Titan is a failure. When Machine Head refuses to let Titan go even after he pays off his debt to him, Titan tries to enlist Mark's help in taking him down. Mark at first refuses, stating that Titan is a criminal. Titan smiles condescendingly, saying that Mark doesn't even know what that means. Mark calls BS, but then Titan says something that completely defines his character. He says, "I'm not a criminal. I just owed one money and now I can't get out." Of course, he's lying because he doesn't want to get out. He wants to replace Machine Head. But it's not just the lie that makes Titan despicable, it's his hypocrisy. He claims he's not a criminal. Okay, then why didn't you go easier on these order thugs? You spared the kid even after he shot at you, yes, but you still killed several of them and brutally at that. Why? They're not criminals. They just owe one money. And even if they wanted to, do you think they could leave the order any more than you can leave Machine Head? In Titan's next scene, he burns down an apartment building. Granted, he makes sure everyone is evacuated and even gives the tenants money to stay in a hotel, but he still burned their homes and all of their personal belongings, including their food. Next, when he steals a piece of tech for Machine Head, he suggests to the security guards that they fire their guns at the ceiling so they can all walk away happy. They comply, but he absolutely would have killed them if they attacked him. Even though he avoids killing whenever he can, he flat out says to Mark that he's committed assassinations on Machine Head's behalf. When Titan says, "I'm not a criminal, I just owed one money," he's basically saying that he and he alone should be completely excused from the harm he causes because he's doing it for his family. I mean, these order thugs could only be working for Mr. Liu in order to provide for their families, but why should Titan give a fuck about that? He's special. He's just a victim of the system, a tragic martyr. Let me contrast that with another black character. Henry from The Last of Us. Warning, this will contain heavy spoilers. When we're introduced to Henry, he and his little brother Sam are on the run from the resistance movement that overthrew the totalitarian Fedra, and the movement wants him bad. Real bad, especially their leader Kathleen. We learn that Henry was a Fedra collaborator who sold out Kathleen's brother, Michael, the former leader of the resistance, in order to get medicine for his brother who was dying from leukemia. So, in that sense, he's similar to Titan, since Titan worked for Machine Head for money for medicine for his sick daughter. But that's where the similarities end. When Henry teams up with Joel and Ellie to escape the resistance movement, Joel asks if Henry is Fedra, and Henry's reply is, "No, Worse, I'm a collaborator. Later, Joel deduces that Henry only collaborated with Fedra to help his brother and apologizes for judging him so harshly, even lamenting that it seems overly cruel that Henry be subjected to such a massive manhunt. Joel gave Henry an out that Henry could have easily taken. He could have played the victim, he could have played the martyr, but instead Henry confesses the full story, even detailing what a great man Michael was. Kind, never afraid, always forgiving. Then he sardonically asks Joel if he still thinks the resistance movement should go easy on him. When Joel doesn't reply, Henry says he doesn't know why Joel is hesitating. He is the bad guy because he did a bad guy thing. It's these two scenes that made Henry one of my favorite characters in the show. Henry had no choice but to sell Kathleen's brother out to save his own brother, but that does not absolve the pain he caused by killing a good man. And Henry certainly doesn't expect his reasons to matter to Michael's loved ones. Both the narrative and Henry himself hold him fully accountable for his actions. In the game version of The Last of Us, Henry was a token black character who had no depth beyond wanting to join the Fireflies and to protect his little brother. But in the show, he's a fully human and even sympathetic character, and I'm certain Show Henry is a favorite among fans. But imagine this for a moment. When Joel asks Henry if he's Fedra, instead of replying that he's worse than Fedra, he says, I'm not Fedra, I just owe them. Yeah, Henry would not have been one of my favorite characters. The exact opposite, in fact. What makes Titan's lie so despicable is that not only is he a criminal, he doesn't want to quit being one. He wants to be the biggest criminal in Chicago, and this isn't some spur of the moment desire. He did try to tell Machine Head he was done, but his theme song is Make Way for the King, for God's sake. The narrative loves to remind us how smart Titan is, but anyone with two brain cells would know that you can't just quit Machine Head, especially when you're as useful as Titan. And do you think he could have recruited someone like Isotope in the span of days that he interacted with Mark? He's been working on Isotope for months, if not years. His life's ambition is not to be a devoted family man, but to be Chicago's biggest sugar daddy. A character who loves being a criminal, but pretends he only stayed one for the sake of his family. Where have we heard that before? Well, I'm sure it'll come to me soon enough. Despite his seeming nobility, Titan is a very bitter, egotistical character. He tells Mark that Mark got lucky when he defeated him, and when Mark responds with, Sure, I did, you could tell Titan really has to swallow his temper before he asks for help. He knows Mark didn't just get lucky. Mark is much more powerful than him, but he won't admit that out loud. He also calls Mark a rich kid from the suburbs. Now, rich people often love to victim blame poor people for things beyond their control, but poor people can sometimes have their own elitism too. Like, if you grew up with more than me, then you're automatically a classist asshole, or you're to blame for things I didn't have. And Titan does blame superheroes for his situation. He even bitterly remarks to Mark a couple of times that no heroes ever came down to rescue them from Machine Head's tyranny. I mean, they were just stopping alien invasions, meteors, and interdimensional gods that could literally destroy the entire planet. But that doesn't matter because when they save the planet, it's at the expense of oppressed little guys like Titan. Let me ask you guys this. If Mark suddenly devoted himself to Titan City while shutting out the rest of the world, including all the alien invasions, meteors, and interdimensional gods, would Titan see Mark as a hero? Yes, absolutely he would. Screw this meteor that Mark stopped. Screw the 3 Flaxen invasions. Screw this dying old woman in Mark's arms. If you don't specifically help me and my people, then you're not a hero. You're just a spoiled icon who flies around to feed your own narcissism. These victims of the Flaxen invasions aren't real people with real lives. No, Mark's just been wasting his time hauling elephant men through the streets. Titan's contempt for heroes is made perfectly clear when Mark is literally dying because of him. He says, Sorry, kid, didn't mean for it to end this way, but I gotta take care of mine. Walks away while Mark chokes on his own blood. Hope you make it. He almost died for you. That doesn't make him yours? Of course not, because he's not from your city and, well, he's still a spoiled icon who never helped you in the past. So he's still kind of responsible for your problems and deserves to be discarded like a tool. Not to mention he's white, not black. Let's be real here. Titan would have been a lot more remorseful if Mark was black. And while Mark is half Asian, someone like Titan would assume he was white based on his skin and accent. Titan's smart, remember? When Titan called him a rich kid from the suburbs, he really meant rich white kid. Now, I want you to picture this for a moment. I'm being extorted by a man who will kill my family if I don't comply with his demands. I plead for help from another man, and not only does he agree to help me, he succeeds in freeing me and my family and nearly dies for it. As he lies there, grievously injured, I don't thank him. I don't comfort him. I just give him a half-assed apology while reminding him that giving his life for me isn't nearly enough to make him mine. But, I hope he makes it. And I would be perfectly justified in doing that because even though white people have oppressed black people for hundreds of years, men have oppressed women for thousands of years. I've got pedigree, damn it. Even though this man held me unconditionally and almost died, he's still a man. Would that make me justified? No, it would make me a fucking monster. You can tell by Titan's tone that he does not give a shit that he almost got Mark killed. He doesn't lose an ounce of sleep over the fact that he used a 17-year-old boy as a blood sacrifice for his criminal empire. A selfish criminal who uses and takes advantage of a less experienced younger person. Where have we heard that before? Yeah, it'll come to me soon enough. When the dust settles and Machine Head is finally locked away, Titan could have just paid off Isotope and quit. But instead, he becomes head of the criminal enterprise. The writers try to gaslight us into thinking this was a good thing, and on the surface it is because the city is a much better place under Titan's rule. But Titan still has to do dealings with other criminal organizations like the Order, meaning he has to be an accessory to the suffering of others outside his city. But of course, they're not his own. Funny, he wanted Mark to see what he couldn't see outside his privileged little bubble. Titan himself doesn't give a shit about what happens outside his bubble, so what if he has to break out a psychotic asshole like Multi-Paul who takes pleasure in the fact that he's killed for less than nothing? And so what if his wife and daughter are bigger targets for assassination more than ever now that he's Chicago's biggest sugar daddy? Machine Head was right. Titan's not going to just quit and go flip burgers. He didn't stay a criminal for his family. He stayed because he liked it. He was good at it. And he was really alive. In season 3, Titan tries to enlist Mark's help again in breaking Multipole out to appease the Order, and Titan's behavior toward Mark is absolutely disgusting. He tells Mark that using and leaving him was nothing personal. Of course it wasn't personal. Mark would have to be a person to you in order for it to be personal. Then he gaslights Mark by saying, I fought like hell to keep you alive. No, Mark fought like hell to keep you alive when Magmaniac was going to boil your skin off. Our media has a nasty habit of idealizing white crime as understandable, sympathetic, and as interesting character arcs, while black crime is always portrayed as a failure of character. Let's be honest, if Walter White was black, he would not have been portrayed sympathetically in the beginning of Breaking Bad. But in the end, there were severe consequences for Walt's actions. In Invincible, Titan has been given the idealized crime treatment that has only been reserved for white male characters for so many years. Despite his entitlement, his victim mentality, and his crimes, we're mostly supposed to be focused on how sympathetic he is. When he becomes Chicago's biggest sugar daddy, it's meant to be seen as a triumph. Because Titan's going to be better than Machine Head on the surface, he deserves to replace him. And oh yeah, he gets no consequences, not even in season 3. This makes him as relatable as Amber when William and Eve sided with her after she gaslit Mark. Contrast that with Henry, whose only goal in life was to protect his remaining family. And let's face it, Henry had it a lot worse than Titan. He was in the zombie apocalypse under a totalitarian dictatorship, for God's sake. And he's a normal human. When Mark confronted Cecil in season 3, his ignorance, entitlement, and hypocrisy made me realize that superhero privilege in the Invincible world is a perfect metaphor for white and male privilege in our world. Mark physically intimidated Cecil by slamming his hands on his desk, threatening to stay until Cecil complied with his demands, and marching toward him when Cecil said he was scaring the shit out of him. What are you even talking about, Cecil? He's not even doing anything. Titan thinks he's just a tragic victim of poverty and oppression, and he can coat his entire body in highly durable stone that can take punches from a baby Viltrumite. He's not just another squishy human who can be crushed under rubble or ended with a single bullet. He has real power to protect himself and his family, gets everything he wants in the end, and loses nothing. Titan is not a bitter black man. In the Invincible universe, he's an entitled white man. It's a sad story that John Coffey from The Green Mile was a better black character than Titan. Stephen King himself admitted that he used the magic Negro trope often due to his own white guilt, but the narrative treats John Coffey like a human being and not a Gary Stu like Titan. In the end, John doesn't go free and continue to use his power for the benefit of humanity. He's tired of humanity. He's sad, lonely, and just wants it to end. As compassionate, selfless, and even innocent as John Coffey was, he still suffered consequences. Sad, unfair consequences, but still consequences. Even the consequences of his power will live on in Paul Edgecombe for God knows how long. And Henry too loses everything when, just as it seems that they've escaped the impossible, he shoots his infected brother and then shoots himself. Consequences, especially unfair consequences, are relatable because that's how real life works. By not giving Titan any consequences, you robbed him of any relatability he may have had. Okay, in season 4, he does get consequences. Mark beats him up and he's forced to join the Order. But that's not nearly enough. Little more than Titan's pride suffers. For his sheer entitlement and hypocrisy, I felt like his wife and/or daughter should have been killed. Or better yet, the writers could have had Vanessa and Fiona leave him for prioritizing his pride over their well-being. The irony is that the two black characters who had the most potential for relatability were the ones who got the least amount of on-screen character development. Darkwing 2's struggle with mental illness as well as his guilt over the lives he unnecessarily took was very interesting. Black Samson's former status as a guardian, the loss of his powers, and potential survivor's guilt could have made him very relatable. Alas, it was not to be. Real progressive Invincible writers. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 2 where I discuss how progressive Invincible is toward women, especially women of color.